global governance while decisions about nations, while disregarding. You cannot claim to be the United Nations while disregarding the voice of 54 nations. It is not possible. Africa is no longer willing to wait on the margins of global governance while decisions about peace.
So, our president, my president in Kenya, His Excellency William Ruto, in the last United Nations, giving a good speech with a lot of clarity, if I may say, and he seemed to, make this argument that it has been a very long time since, United Nations it has been acting, without considering 54 countries from Africa, maybe 54 or maybe more. I think nowadays there are more. Which, to my opinion, is quite a valid point. It has been quite a while since this has been happening, But yeah, from which basis, the argument would be, is it merely to have the big boys and girls elected to represent countries or to be on bigger table, or is it in form of, decision making? Because you see, African, countries we have our challenges as much as, I'm concerned. But do we just say those challenges can be only, found its solutions only in United Nations table, or do we have that capacity to solve our problems, as a continent first? Or if we may even start from a country to country, from a country to another, standing on our own, doing what is right, and then going to African table and make those resolutions there. And I mean, by resolution, putting things to work. And then from there we can be considered, a serious player in United Nations. Because for me, I don't see a reason why we want to be seem like a big players, but at the same time, people are disregarding, their own citizens, their own countries, their own people. So, should we just stand first for ourselves, and then from there we can put the arguments, through, so that, the other players sees what we are doing is serious. We will listen more.
Security and development are made without our understanding, without our perspectives, and without our voice. Africa's exclusion is not only unacceptable, unfair, and grossly unjust, it also undermines the very credibility of the United Nations.
So yeah, economy and security and everything, it's a president, or it's a leader, or it's leaders of Africa, do we really expect other people to come to our countries, to our rescue, and help us do everything? Or can we just stand for our own first, do what we can do? And by this I mean, fairly, without putting a lot of corruption deals along the institutions, along the ministries and everything that we do. So first, if we stand for our own, from there we can argue and say that now we are that big players that you need on the table, and we have a voice. Because from my perspective, what is meant by disregarded. It means simply the other players don't see the seriousness or the commitment why they should, put the Africa continent on that big table, on that, serious decision-making table. So I think it's time, Africa stands for its own, and we stop this kind of crying every time, because I remember my president 3 years ago also, after elections, he was again standing very strongly and agitating and making the similar points that, Africa must be given good deals when it comes to monetary, funding of from international, monetary funds, because other countries are getting with a lower interest. But when it comes to Africa, we are always, taken like shithouse countries, and then you come maumba, that kind of attitude. So I thought that was also a good argument from our president, but 3 years down the line, what has happened? I don't think there's anything, that tangible we could say, the big players have acted to correct that. And of course, this boils downwards to what are we doing for ourselves? Because what they see from us, it's what they decide they will treat us. People cannot lift you if you want to be down, or if you don't lift yourself. So I think this is the most problem that we have had for a very long time. And again, if we feel like it's a continent we are not, taken serious, why don't we, get out of the United Nations, form the African Union, a stronger one, the one that can fund itself, the one that can put security for itself, the one that can feed its people. And if we do that and we do it seriously, I think we will be seen as a serious players. That's my opinion, you see. But this thing of going to United Nations and start crying there, or we are not treated well, or we are not given the right share, or we are not done this and that. Many countries in Africa, if I take example in Kenya now, over 60 years of the so-called independence, we still, cry like that. We still argue from those bases of that we are not taken serious. We are not given opportunity to be in big table. We are not done this and that. But at the other hand, we turn around and say, for example, United Nations need to give assurance and give security to the African countries. Oh, you need to do this and that. So if they see we depend on them so much, then they will decide on what to do with that. I think that would be a fair argument, Many people would argue that, what the fuck are you talking about? Who do you think you are? Why do you think Africa should stand on its own or get out of United Nations? But at the same time, we are crying that we are treated like this. For example, now Traore has gotten to the power in Burkina Faso, and he wants to change a lot of things. It's just the same African presidents who are demeaning him and saying, he's a dictator, or why he's doing this, and he has to be reported, or he has to be taken to United Nations. And I can tell you, whenever you give chance to those big players or big boys to determine how we should live, so they will do it. But this argument of, Africa must be given this opportunity of making decisions, and at the same time we are begging those big players. I don't think it will work even in a one day. So yeah, good argument, but at a wrong place, because this, for me, it should be in African Union, this kind of argument. And if the presidents, as they claim, they can sit down and say, hey, we are over 54 countries, or we are 50, or we are this a certain number, can we sit down and make our continent work for once? Can we make this thing work so the other players will see us, as a serious, partner? But we cannot claim that we want to be in a big table. At the same time, we need their help in security, in health, in education, in almost everything. But putting in mind, for example, now what it's Burkina Faso now is doing, it shows that Africa is not poor. It has never been poor. So it's the people who are poor mentally, our leaders and everything. And you see, everyone gets there. What they want to make is a lot of money, so their families and 100 years to come, they will never, have problems, or they will never lack anything money-wise. So we cannot claim, to be this big player, and same time we are playing rough to our people. So I think that would be my argument. I don't know.